There is a kind of imbalance that does not announce itself with drama. It does not burn. It does not erupt. It does not force immediate attention. It settles in slowly. It becomes a pattern, then a habit, then a structure. And eventually, what once felt stable begins to feel rigid. That is the real teaching of Kapha in the 10th house. Because the 10th house is not only career, public life, achievement, authority, and duty. In the body, this house governs the knees, lower thighs, upper calves, skeletal system, bones, skin, and the structural support mechanisms that help a person stand, move, bend, and bear worldly load. So when Kapha increases here, the problem is not speed or heat. The problem is density becoming rigidity. And that is exactly what this slide captures so well. It tells you that Kapha is heavy, slow, moist, stable, and accumulative. Then it shows how that accumulation expresses structurally. Slow joint mobility, resistance to bending, congested circulation in the lower limbs, accumulation-type arthritis, reduced stamina, and a gradual rather than acute degeneration. That last distinction matters deeply. Gradual rather than acute degeneration. This is not the violent breakdown of a system under attack. This is the slow hardening of a system that has become too fixed, too loaded, too resistant to movement. And the phrase that summarizes it is excellent. Structure becomes heavy and rigid. That is the core. Now think about the symbolism of the 10th house. The 10th house is where life asks you to stand up in the world, to take responsibility, to act publicly, to adapt professionally, to keep moving through changing demands, changing roles, changing expectations. And yet the body parts assigned to this house are knees and structural tissues. Why? Because the 10th house is not just about standing. It is about bending while standing. That is the hidden wisdom. To function well in the world, a person needs strength, yes, but also flexibility, the ability to adjust, to pivot, to respond, to redistribute weight, to move forward under pressure without becoming locked. So when Kapha aggravates the 10th house, the body may begin showing exactly the same issue the personality is living, difficulty bending. And that can be literal, emotional, psychological, and professional all at once. This is why the second half of the slide is so important. It moves from skeletal expression into emotional and psychological expression. Attachment to job security, resistance to career change, comfort zone leadership, avoidance of risk, dependence on authority structures, and difficulty adapting professionally. Then it gives the perfect closing line. Ambition slows into inertia. That is not ordinary laziness. That is a karmic pattern. This is what happens when Kapha enters the house of ambition and public effort in an imbalanced way. At first, the person may look stable, dependable, grounded, practical, cautious, and consistent. And in a healthy Kapha expression, those are beautiful strengths. Such a person can stay with the path, build patiently, and hold responsibility without panic. But when Kapha accumulates too much, those same virtues become heavy shadows. Stability becomes stagnation. Patience becomes postponement. Loyalty becomes over-attachment. Caution becomes fear of movement. Consistency becomes inability to change. Endurance becomes professional stuckness. That is the deeper psychological teaching here. The person may remain in the same role too long, not because it is right, but because movement feels threatening. They may cling to authority structures, titles, routines, or familiar burdens, not because these are nourishing, but because the unknown feels too effortful. They may avoid risk, avoid reinvention, avoid discomfort, and slowly lose professional elasticity. And the body mirrors it. The joints resist bending. Circulation slows in the lower limbs. Stamina reduces. The movement becomes thick. The degeneration becomes gradual. The structure becomes rigid under accumulated stillness. This is why Moon, Jupiter, and Venus symbolism is so relevant to Kapha patterns. Moon can hold and retain. Jupiter can expand and accumulate. Venus can attach to comfort, ease, and familiar pleasure. So when these kinds of energies heavily influence the 10th house in a Kapha direction, the person may not outwardly collapse. Instead, they may settle into an over-secured life pattern. They may say, I do not want to change jobs now. I do not want to take that risk. I would rather stay where things are known. I will do it later. This is comfortable enough. At least this is stable. But under that language is often a deeper truth. The system has become too heavy to move cleanly. And that is why this pattern needs to be read with compassion and rigor. Because if you read it superficially, you will judge the person as unambitious. But that is often not quite true. Very often, ambition is still there. It has just slowed, thickened, and lost momentum inside an over Kapha pattern. The desire to move exists, but the system has become too attached, too burdened, too rigid, or too inert to mobilize itself easily. So as a healer, you must ask, where has security become stuckness? Where has comfort become a cage? Where has loyalty become resistance? Where has support become immobility? And as an astrology student, do not stop at saying 10th house means career and Kapha means heaviness. Take it further. Ask how the person bears professional load. Ask whether their structure still has adaptability. Ask whether their outer life is being supported by resilience or trapped by accumulation. Ask whether their ambition is alive or slowly freezing into habit. That is how this house becomes meaningful. Balanced Kapha in the 10th gives durable leadership, calm responsibility, grounded work ethic, patience, reliability, and mature steadiness in public life. Aggravated Kapha in the 10th gives rigid professional identity, over-attachment to security, fear of change, slow circulation in effort and action, reduced stamina, and a body that begins to express the same refusal to bend that the life pattern is expressing. Balanced Kapha says, I can sustain over time. Aggravated Kapha says, I cannot move out of what has become too fixed. The difference changes the reading completely. And it also changes the healing, because the answer here is not violent disruption. It is progressive mobilization. The person must slowly relearn movement, physically, emotionally, professionally, karmically. They need warmth where there is cold stagnation. Circulation where there is congestion, challenge where there is comfort addiction, flexibility where there is rigidity, renewal where there is dependency on old structures, not recklessly, but deliberately. Because Kapha does not usually transform through sudden force. It transforms when life is reintroduced into what has become too settled. So if you are teaching this, remember the essence. 10th house Kapha is not just heaviness in the body. It is heaviness in one's relationship to duty, authority, adaptation, and movement in the world. The knees tell the truth, the structure tells the truth, and the career pattern often tells the same truth in another language. If this style of deep Jyotish Ayurveda teaching speaks to you, stay with this series, because I am unpacking these combinations in a way that helps you read body, behavior, and karma together. And if you are a healer, practitioner, or serious astrology student, subscribe and follow along, because this is where symbolic interpretation becomes practically observant. And before you leave, sit with this question. Where in your life have you become so committed to security that your ambition has started hardening into inertia? That question alone can open the whole pattern. Because once you see that, you are no longer just studying Kapha in the 10th house. You are understanding how rigidity enters both life and body.